Hi guys, Jeremy McIntyre here. For those who don't know me, I'm a best-selling author, what I didn't learn at school but wish I had, and been a financial educator for 20 years, predominantly in Australia. So I get a lot of questions from my followers about what's happening with the coronavirus, how that will affect investment markets, what's going to happen with the property market, say particularly in Australia. So let me share my opinion. As I said, everyone has an opinion, especially with Facebook. Everyone has 2 or 3 opinions, but I actually don't mind that. I think it's great that people have a discussion and share things. And we are in unprecedented times in the world. I mean, wow, who could have believed the world could end up how it is at the moment? Crazy world, but mainly self-induced. I won't go into what's really going on in the world. Many of you are figuring it out. But let's focus on this session, what we can control and what's likely to happen. How have I been able to predict the rise of certain investments and help many people make millions of dollars just by listening to what I have to say? It's not because I have a direct line to Warren Buffett, although I did write a book on Warren, and that's a great book to read, and I'll make that available actually for some of my followers in the next few weeks, no charge. You read that book, I basically wrote all about Warren Buffett's mindset and his rules for making investments. After you read that book, you actually feel like Warren Buffett, maybe not as old, hopefully, but as far as the thinking, if you can get inside someone's head and see how they think, it really helps you make different investment decisions. But why have I been able to predict successfully the future when it comes to particularly investment trends? And I'm going to tell you, it's not through a crystal ball. It's just because I spent 20 years teaching human psychology, peak performance psychology, to over 500,000 students around from 17 different countries. So out of that, I've learned to understand how people think and how herd mentality thinks, and how cultural beliefs and the way that we're taught at school to conform and all these things, how it plays our part in how people think. If you understand how people think, then you can make a prediction, because humans are highly predictable. Does it make sense? And humans are what drive the stock market and property market and spending and all those things. And so it's not from a crystal ball. It's really, I'll give you a clue, it's common sense, really is all it is. So if you can apply common sense, the most successful people I've known, from the millionaires to billionaires that I've studied and met, the dominant thing is common sense. And you would know that to be true. Look at Warren Buffett as an example, one of the greatest investors on the planet. My God, he's like the king of common sense, because he's able to think rationally. He's able to get himself to act when other people are fearful. And that's why he's able to profit. So, I won't say these things to impress you, but impress upon you. Once you develop this skill, and that's why I've always taught it in my events, those who have been to my events, I don't like to spoon feed people the answers. That's why I don't give advice. I'm an educator. So I educate people, I help people think and give them the rules, or help them create their own rules, so how they can come up with their own assessment of things. Does it make sense? Because that's more valuable to you than having to come back, to every little time something crisis happens, go, Jamie, what's going to happen? Okay. How about you figure it out what's going to happen? So I was able to predict the rise of Bitcoin for certain reasons, and I did. I was one of the first people to write a book about that, 2012. I told all my followers that, over time it hit $120 to start buying, and a lot of people become very rich as a result of that. I also told people before that, 2010, the bottom of the US property market had bottomed, and you could go and buy properties for like $50,000. It used to be $300,000. Some people listened and got very rich. Some people didn't. How did I predict that? I've continually been a contrarian in the Australian property market. So many commentators, radio, always spruiking, the market's going to crash. I've been, spoken on radio and stuff many times and made my statements publicly available. Many times when they're saying it's going to crash, I've come out and said, wrong, we're going to have another property boom. And I've been proven right every single time. How am I able to predict that? Once again, it's common sense. It's just assessing data and looking in a way. Same with the coronavirus thing. How was I able to assess very quickly that it wasn't going to wipe out tens of millions of people? It was nothing so uncertain. One, because I study history. So it wasn't that I knew it would be economically devastating, but that's self-inflicted devastation we've done to ourselves from overreacting. So just the people that are able to figure that out and decipher the bullshit as well, or you have to have good bullshit detectors, you can get a head start on others and able to predict what's likely to happen. Now, even with that now, it's over, folks. It'll be gone very soon. They'll try and manipulate and drag it as long as possible. It's done and dusted, okay? They'll try and milk it in the future and scare you into more outbreaks. But if you just understand that amount, then that'll help you tell a lot of insight what's going to happen to the property markets as well, or the stock markets. I also told people to buy gold when it used to be $200 an ounce, quite some time ago, because it would go up to one day 2,000 an ounce. So in Australian dollars, and that ended up happening. So what's going to happen in the future? Well, even recently, I told a few of my inner circle that I'd be buying put options on the stock market because it's going to crash. Now, I didn't know exactly when it was going to crash, but I knew enough about the coronavirus to be able to make a prediction. Now, how did I know more than others? I simply do my fucking research. I actually research. I don't take as gospel what Channel 7 or CNN tells you. That's not researching. That's just fake news, basically. I do real research and I understand quickly. Now, there's a lot of uncertainty. Uncertainty is what makes markets volatile. In the beginning, people thought there was this thing that was going to wipe out half the planet. But we also quickly knew assess data. So once you started assessing the data, you knew it was heavily exaggerated and inflated. And then if you knew history about that, you knew, well, the actual virus is not the real problem. It's going to be the overreaction of governments that will be the real problem. That was what's going to cause the real damage, okay? And now we've seen that to be true. They'll try and write history to cover that up as far as that, no, we needed to lock down all the countries. That's what was required and that's what saved us. Yeah, if you buy that, you probably buy other things as well. And that's why you'll never predict what's really going to happen in the future, because stop buying what they push. They're trying to sell you something. Stop buying it, folks. Stop buying it if you want to know how to predict the future. If you don't know how to predict the future and be completely uncertain in your life and controlled by fear and sign up for any dumb agenda, then by all means, listen to Channel 7, read Fairfax News, watch CNN, and you'll have no fucking idea what's going to happen in the world. And you certainly won't be able to predict the markets. Does it make sense? Assessing data is one thing. You don't have to be a genius in mathematics. You just, once again, have to have common sense and the ability to ask questions. So let's put that aside. So what do I believe will happen in the Australian property market? Before just catching on that. So what I told people is that the stock markets were going to crash and to start buying put options. Okay, now I couldn't say that publicly because I'm not allowed to say that publicly, but I'm allowed to commentate and share that with a few of my close friends. And guess what happened? Now, I didn't know exactly when it happened. I was thinking it could take a month, up to 60, 90 days max when I said that. So I told people to buy at least 3-month options just in case it took a little bit longer. 2 weeks after I said that, guess what happened? The markets tanked, okay? Late February, I think it was, pretty late February, the markets really tanked. So if you had known that and able to predict that, then you have an advantage over the rest of the population. Makes sense? So these things are able to be figured out by a combination of having common sense, combination of seeing through bullshit and knowing what was going to happen, more likely going to happen. And remember again, making predictions is very risky because there's always different things that we don't know about, okay? But you just have to be right more times than you're wrong, and you are ahead of the pack and you can do very well, okay? So what's my predictions moving forward? Well, here's what I would say will happen with the, say, Australian property market. There'll be a bit of a dip in the interim, and then we're going to have a massive property boom again. So let me repeat that. There will be a bit of a dip in the interim, and then we're going to have a massive property boom again. Now, why can I make that assessment? Well, folks, the worst in Australia, we're going to be one of the leading countries out of the coronavirus. We never really got hit by it. Now, I know our governments are going to claim credit for that, but, you can also figure this out too. Do you know where most of the problems are? In the fucking Northern Hemisphere where it's cold and it's winter. That was a big fucking clue. Australia. It's fucking hot. Okay? Hot. Viruses don't like the heat. Oh, but we don't know that yet. Well, just fucking look at the results. Look at the numbers. Also, Australia's an island continent. Much easier. We have very good quarantine, even though we could have better fucking quarantine at the airports on incoming traffic and could have stopped it sooner without locking down the whole fucking country. Like Taiwan was very smart. They didn't do an economic lockdown and was the most successful of all countries. So don't buy that we had to have a lockdown. You should be pissed about your civil liberties being taken away, but, you know, can control what you control. Either way, so as a result, we'll come out of it quicker than others. You know, the worst in the world is already over anyhow. If you haven't figured that out, if you still think it's going to get worse, blah, 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 then how the fuck are you going to make an assessment? You must do your research, figure it out. The worst of this is over, okay? They're going to try and hype it more and they're going to try and sell you a vaccine, but, you know, you don't have to buy this stuff, okay? You don't have to buy into the drama. Just see through it for what it is, okay? Don't make out life worse than it is. Don't make it out better than it is. Just see it how it fucking is. True? That's all you can do. So, property market's going to boom after a short interim drop. Why? Well, let's come into common sense corner and figure this out. Do we have record low interest rates? Yes or no? Yes! You can get 2.29% fixed interest for 2 to 3 years. We have the lowest interest rates ever, okay? So, is that going to cause a property crash? No fucking way will it, okay? What about, so the other thing you've got to check, what drives the property market, is supply. Okay, guess what's happening in supply? 2019, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it was 177,000 new housing dwellings, which is pretty high. We used to run an average about 155,000, 177,000 above average. But guess what? 2020, it's plummeting. I don't know off the top of my head, but you can quickly check these stats. Go and look it up. I think you'd be looking at probably already dropped to probably about 124,000 they're expecting now for 2020. It could even drop more sharply and drop under 100,000 starts, one of the lowest housing starts for a very, very long time. We need in Australia with the population growth, certainly probably over 150, probably around the 160, 170,000. It's only in recent years the China boom or the Chinese boom that enabled us to actually, you know, produce more apartments or more houses than we actually needed to catch up. But now we're going to be all below. So supply is going to be squished, okay? So demand. Well, obviously, unemployment is your big issue, Jamie, but unemployment's rising. Well, first of all, we're going to have over 10% plus unemployment, but also remember, a lot of that is interim unemployment. True? Now, there will be devastation. Some industries won't start, so I'm not saying it's going to be a rosy picture straight away, but let's face it, a lot of that is interim unemployment still. Once the lockdowns come off in 4 weeks, we'll start reducing it. I mean, Scott Morrison, to his credit, he's not stupid. At least he's working on it, knows that he can't keep the economy locked down. You know, like more people have fucking died of suicide already than have died of the coronavirus. Let's face it. In Australia, to die of the coronavirus, you already had to be dying or stupid enough to go on a fucking Ruby Princess cruise ship in the middle of a fucking so-called pandemic. If you didn't do that, the chances of fucking dying are so fucking low. I don't know. Well, you'd have to, I don't know. How the fuck would you die from it? Very fucking hard. Not to dismiss that it's not deadly. But so is walking across the road not fucking looking. So is the flu. Notice how the flu rates have dropped. Let's not get into that. Don't check data out too much. You might find things that are unsettling, you know. So do you see how that common sense? So there will be a rapid recovery. I dare say what they will do to help stimulate the market and the economies, they'll have to restrict lending and make it and encourage the banks to start lending a lot more. What I love about property in Australia is pretty much bank guaranteed and government guaranteed. Pretty much. We're not going to let it fucking crash because the banks would go under, our economy would go under. Now, not to say that it's perfect and not to say it's not in a fucking bubble, but, you know, Sydney prices, house prices have been fucking overvalued since 1980. Is it true? Has it crashed? Steve Cook's going higher and higher. So there will be sections. So I wouldn't be going out there buying fucking high-rise apartments. I think, why? Because a lot of the Chinese investors or, you know, they're no longer here. That market will no longer be here. So some of those markets will find it tough. So all I'm saying is, my commentary is this, that you're going to see a property boom after a short interim of it going down. you're going to see a lot of things boom. There's so much stimulus in the marketplace right now. Some industries are fucked, will not recover, and also you're going to see class actions too. A lot of businesses will start suing the government because when you apply facts in court of law, you have to apply the facts. The facts did not justify the overreaction governments did, but they've done them. And a lot of companies, especially large companies, will be able to sue. You'll see a lot of that. Industries that will boom, of course, you could already see that online. Businesses like Kogan's done very well, Amazon's done very well, Woolworths, etc. A lot of businesses that have pivoted and drove their online sales up. A lot more consumers now will continue to buy online. Once we develop new habits, we tend to stick to that. I wouldn't be in commercial property. I think that's going to really struggle. How many head offices now, big companies will go, half the staff work well from home. The other half need to be fucking here because they need supervision, but the other half work quite well. So a lot more people work from home and they can go, well, we could slash our rents in head office by half instead of having all this space. I think you'll see a trend to that happening. So I think it's only accelerated some things. So a lot of good things will come out of this. A lot of hurt and pain in other industries sometimes. Stock market, well, you've had your chance to buy already. Some of you already missed the best chance you had. So I can't give advice on the stock market. You need to be licensed to do that. I'm not. I can give commentary, but my commentary is that you've already had your best chance to buy some of the biggest bargains. So if you didn't, well, maybe you missed out. There's still a lot of bargains to be had, though. And there'll still be pain felt in certain industries sometimes. Some industries will take a long time to recover. Others will just come out of this like, boom, at the gates. So there's still a lot of uncertainties in what government can do to fuck up industries. They're pretty good at that. They've fucked up a lot of industries with this. But my point is, I'm still bullish. I've said before, and I'll say it again. I still believe the 2020s will be like the roaring 20s. I wasn't around then. Many of you weren't. But it was one of the greatest economic booms, okay? So I still believe that. We may take a year or two to get back into that roaring 20s type thing, but I still think I'm very optimistic the 20s is going to be one of the greatest opportunities to make as much money as possible. And I want the good folk, good people out there to start making a lot more money because there's people like Bill Gates in the world that have $100 billion and he wants to impose his agenda on you. We need enough other people out there becoming millionaires and billionaires and collectively, we collectively are being a force for good. Share and make this world a better place. We can't have centralized power in the hands of an individual or centralized power in the hands of an organization. You only have to see who has become. We don't need that sort of dictator. You need to care about your world, and you can only have an influence generally if you have money or resources or access to it. So take advantage of this and get richer and make the world a better place. Make sense? I hope that helps in a little way. Those who become subscribers at 21st Century University, that's 21stcenturyu.com. Like it's now the Netflix of online education. You can get like $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 worth of programs and more being added by speakers around the world all the time for like $59. So take advantage of that. Don't just watch Netflix. Subscribe to Netflix of online education, and I will be adding, and as other speakers will, more detailed updates to that as we go along, so you can stay updated. Remember how much money you could have made just by knowing, when I said buy put options. What I was doing in the stock market. If you hadn't known that, how much money you would have made early February. How much money would you make if you bought real estate 2010 US property, you've got into Bitcoin when it was early? I'll teach you how to come up with those same assessments so you don't need to take advice, but you can use the same assessment to figure it out for yourself. Anyhow, I've got to go. Nice talking to you in this crazy, wonderful world we live in. There's still many good things, so let's focus on what we can control. Talk to you soon.